Okay, welcome. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. I'm just smiling from ear to ear because this is just such a wonderful group of colleagues and friends and collaborators, and it's just really great to be here with you all. Um, so it's my pleasure to welcome you all to this year's Taub Fellowship in Aging Project Symposium. Congratulations to the Taub Fellows. I think everyone knows who I am, but my name is Dr. Lauren Snedeker, and I'm the director of the Aging and Health Certificate Program at Rutgers School of Social Work. And the Taub Fellowship in Aging is a signature offering for Aging and Health Certificate Program students. And so I first want to thank the fellows for their dedication and efforts in leading wonderful work that you're about to hear about this year at their practicum settings and agencies. A special thank you to Julia and the Taub Foundation for their support over the years, to our students through the fellowship, and also for work being done at the Hub for Aging Collaboration. And finally, thank you to the practicum instructors and agency partners for all of your collaboration and mentorship for our students, especially now more than ever. We really thank you and honor your work that you're doing for the community, for those that you're serving in practice, and also mentoring like the new generation of social workers coming through our school. Unfortunately, Dean Leibowitz was is unable to attend this morning. He called me late last night, and he's been called into an emergency meeting with our chancellor. Emergency not meaning bad, but just as you can expect, lots of updates and things happening in our world. So he, expresses his sincerest apologies for missing this wonderful event, and is looking forward to catching up with the fellows at graduation, as well as our certificate gathering in a few weeks, and just celebrating your work, and so impressed by the accomplishments. And thanks, Julia, of course, and all the partners here as well. And let's see, I'd like to now, we have a little bit of a tight program. So of course, we're going to be hearing from the fellows who are going to be presenting their amazing work this year. But first, I would like to invite Julia from the Taub Foundation just to share her congratulations on behalf of the foundation.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here, Lauren. This is like for you, being in a group of social workers is one of my favorite places to be. So I appreciate all of you. Good morning. I'm Julia Stumbos from the Henry and Marilyn Taub Foundation. I'm the director for Aging in Place there. And I represent the trustees and the staff of the foundation when I congratulate all of you for completing your certificate program and your leadership projects. Can you hear me okay, Lauren? Okay. I just will say a few words. The foundation trustees gladly invest in this program and in the Taub Fellowship as a way to support your leadership and your professional development and new ways of thinking about aging. So we're thrilled to be part of your journey. And we're grateful for the extraordinary guidance that your professors and your administrators, Dr. Lauren Snedeker, Dr. Emily Greenfield, Dean Leibowitz, and others in the School of Social Work have provided to you. And I just wanted to say a few words about this historic moment and the ecosystem, to borrow a favorite term from Emily, that we find ourselves in American society right now. It's a time when policies are putting healthy aging at risk. I'm sure all of you realize that. And on a daily basis, we're hearing more and more news and threats about the possibility of stripping away health care and retirement benefits for older adults to give tax breaks to big corporations and wealthy Americans. And it can make you feel deflated. If you focus on the news and that people in positions of power don't really care about the things that we care so much about, like the rights of human beings to live with dignity and access to good quality of life, the basic tenets of social work, it can take the wind out of your sails. But you have not let that happen. And I admire each and every one of you for keeping your chin up and your mind on solutions. Your dedication to the field and the hard work that you've been putting into reaching this point in your journey is very inspiring. And I've seen the topics that you've focused on for your research projects and leadership projects, and they're really on the way to creating important supports and services delivered with compassion, rooted in the foundations of social work, and which is all what we all want access to as we age. Actually, every single one of the topics in your presentation are relevant to my own family life, and I'm keenly aware of the need for progress in these areas. So my message to you is that we need more good people like yourselves to be well trained and poised to do this work and to be creative and to bring your kind spirits to the everyday challenges we as a society face as we live longer lives. You're the ones that are going to be the force that makes it possible to close the health span lifespan gap so there is potential to live a long and healthy life. So I congratulate you for finishing your degrees and for bringing curiosity and creativity and goodwill to the field of aging. And I hope you find the path that's right for you and that your path includes a career in aging in one of its many facets. We need you and we thank you. Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you so, so much. What a beautiful, beautiful message. And I couldn't say it better. I'm incredibly proud of all of the students in this room for their commitment and their preparation for working with all ages, and especially their passion this year in work. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and invite our first Taub Fellow to go ahead and get ready to begin presenting their work. That would be Eli Beck. So Eli, thank you so much. Eli is in a different time zone, so we especially thank him for joining us. Thank you, Eli. Let me
Happy
just
to be
double
here.
check. Can you share your screen? I hope I did.
Yeah,
Oh, fabulous. Okay, great.
I have a share screen button. Let's see. Oh,
Take your time.
send request.
I've
Sent you a
approved it.
request. Excellent.
Thank
Okay,
you.
almost there.
Things are moving. Yes.
The presentation. Okay.
Thank you,
All
Eli.
right. Thank you, Dr. L, and thank you, Julia, for those kind words. It was awesome to participate in this, and I'll just go ahead. So, my project was a dementia caregiver support group, and it was also and that ended up being a bit of an informal partnership with my practicum, the Department of Veterans Affairs, and the Alzheimer's Association. So the idea was to arrange respite care for dementia caregivers to attend an in-person group in collaboration with the Alzheimer's Association. And that solves several problems that I ran into when I started at the VA and started shadowing in the caregiver support program. So they had told me that their in-person attendance for groups was, you know, two people, one person out of a group of 565 caregivers in their caregiver support program. And I kept hearing from social workers in various departments that, oh, we need support for dementia. And I kept hearing, we need an in-person group. In-person groups have kind of fallen off. Uh, and then I was hearing from Shawnee Conrad, who was my mentor in that area, uh, that respite is the barrier, right? So respite care for the person with dementia. Um, and then there was also just a lot of caregivers uh, and dementia caregivers in the state, or even around Salt Lake City, and way more of those than there were people enrolled in the caregiver support program. So I wanted to cast the net wider than that. And that's data. There's at least 11.5 million informal dementia caregivers, and they provide 18.4 billion hours of unpaid help in a year. And then this idea uh, also targets two caregiver profiles, and these are out of 10 profiles developed by the Rosalind Carter Institute for Caregivers. I won't go into all of them, um, but the two that this addresses are people who have a new diagnosis and people who are transitioning from one phase of care to another. The idea is that behind these profiles is that dementia you can organize caregivers in lots of ways, including by diagnosis, and that may make sense to target dementia caregivers specifically, but then also targeting caregivers based on whether the diagnosis is new, whether it's a transition, is also useful. So I was trying to do both in this. So I did run into some curveballs. I checked ahead of time, and there was a way uh, to get people respite hours paid for by the VA and to give them a bump in hours from, say, 7 to 20. There was kind of a limit at 20 so that they could come to the group. Give them extra hours just so they could come to the group. You know, this being probably their first caregiver support group. I did target people who were recently diagnosed with dementia. So I was told, yes, you could do that. And then that changed, and that was a national level change that happened on January 15th. So I had to go back and tell at least one caregiver, actually, those extra hours that I said you could get are not going to happen. That person was still actually able to come to the group, though, luckily. And then some data troubles. I won't get into all the details there, but it was challenging to get a list of people diagnosed with dementia in the area, and then to manage that list in a Excel sheet to make this all work. So that took a lot of time. It's the grunt work there. So the execution, we held the group. It was on March 7th, and it was with the Alzheimer's Association. So they have a curriculum, and they ran a couple of their modules there. We had 3 caregivers show up, and 1 social work student who was interested. And I sort of played the VA resources guru there. The Alzheimer's Association kind of categorized the landscape of long-term care a little bit differently than the VA did. So I was able to kind of clarify at least what the language people will run into at the VA, and try to answer some of those concrete questions, and then also help with with the questions that didn't have concrete answers. So we did collect some quotes. I asked people to write these down. Uh, what's a question you want the answer to? When does the person with dementia no longer realize there's something wrong with them? How can I motivate my father when he really isn't interested in anything anymore? What I try and do seems belittling to him. What is the usual stage of Alzheimer's to admit them to full-time nursing home? And what I want to point out is that none of these questions have straight answers. There is no expert can just hear the question and provide the answer there. So it was helpful to be in a group setting and in person to kind of brainstorm about all of those. Next was, what's something you wish people knew about your experience as a caregiver? People have no idea what this disease is like unless you experience it yourself. It's harder than you think. 24/7. You could kind of pick up the theme there. This is just hard. And that lines up with the data and what we know about dementia caregiving. And what did it take to get here? Help getting a caregiver, that's respite care, find someone to stay with my husband, and I had a home health agency. So respite was the first thing on people's mind when it came to what to get here, what it took to get here today. So some numbers. I actually, what I did was I called people personally and emailed a few, but mostly just called people based on my list. I called a fewer number of people than the usual 565 or so that they would send an email blast out to, and I got a higher percentage of people to come to the group. So I got, out of the people who already had home respite approved through the VA, as in paid for through the VA, 25% of those came. And then there were several more who were interested. And then you can see down there, 43 not contacted. That's an opportunity for future group or future work at the VA is targeting the people who have been diagnosed with dementia, but they don't have home health aid, that's what that acronym is, or home respite. And then the unmeasurables, just in the group, in the room, there was a sense of relief and gratitude, just even walking in the doors, that people just felt seen and cared for, just in being targeted for this. That was the same on the phone, calling them as well. There was a lot of sharing with each other. They weren't necessarily waiting for the facilitator to offer the expert opinion. People had plenty to share with each other, and sharing their mantras for caregiving came up as well. The questions they had were pressing. There was some urgency around them, especially the practical ones. And then a lot of the resources we shared and just the landscape of long-term care, that people were writing down notes, and a lot of that seemed really new to people. So moving forward, the Alzheimer's Association wants to hold a listening session, and they want to get 20 to 25 caregivers in a room. That's going to have to be hybrid as well. It'll also be a virtual room, and they want to continue holding groups based on that listening session. So that is scheduled and now postponed, but that's going to happen. I've kind of passed off duties there. And there's more to gain, as I mentioned, by focusing on folks who don't have that home health or home respite authorized already. And then advertising more efficiently. It took me about 30 minutes per caregiver to get the word out, and that was more efficient than the email blast, but there's still room to get some more efficiency there around getting the word out. So the lessons I learned is the US relies heavily on informal caregivers. I didn't know, just how many, when you do the math on dollar for dollar, how much just how much the US relies on caregivers, and change is slow. The VA is the biggest organization I've ever worked in, and so I learned that repetition is key too. I just needed to develop an elevator pitch for the project and say it to as many people as I possibly could to get anything to move. And then for engaging caregivers, being specific, I think people responded to, hey, I identified you based on being a dementia caregiver with a person who was recently diagnosed. People just felt seen by that and knew that this was for them. And then calling them on the phone was more effective than email and getting them to come to a group. Some unanswered questions. There was the lack of resources for managing sleep disturbance in dementia, and just a reaffirmation that groups are great for the unanswerable questions. People can still feel seen and heard and understood, and get that support. And that caregivers often equate using respite, and especially full-time nursing home placement, often equate that with failure, and that is a big macro task for erasing the stigma around that. So yeah, that's what I got out of the project, and it was an awesome experience.
Excellent. Yes, everyone's singing your praises. Thank you so much, Eli, for sharing this amazing work. We really appreciate the commitment you had with such big systems as well in your practicum. So it's really amazing to hear, your experience, and also again, like your commitment to keep moving forward through all of the changes that you endured. And I think that we'll hold questions for the end for all the fellows if folks have questions. That way we can have like more of a bigger conversation, if that makes sense. So thank you so much, Eli. Wonderful, wonderful job. We appreciate you, and very happy that you got so much out of this experience and can continue to share with others what you've learned at your new agency and future work. Sarah. Welcome, Sarah, our next Taub Fellow. Thank you so much.
Nice job, Eli.
Wonderful.
Okay, so share my screen, right?
Please. Hopefully. It's beautiful. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Hi, everyone. My name's Sarah Christensen, and this is my presentation on what I did for my Taub Fellowship. So my practicum was at the Center for Modern Aging, also known as CMAP. So the Center for Modern Aging, it's a nonprofit. It's dedicated to redefining and enriching experiences of aging for adults. Some of the things I did there was facilitating groups like Clearing Spaces, a decluttering group that was created last year by another fellow, Kellen here. And also some case management in terms of assisting with benefits and resources for older adults and their family members. And then also program planning. So the project I did was a project on hospice titled "What is Hospice?" And it was a one-off psychoeducational presentation that seeks to help prepare individuals to approach hospice care for themselves, loved ones, and not so loved ones. The goal for the presentation was to provide information that prepared individuals in the community for hospice discussions and planning, as well as addressing myths and assumptions related to hospice, like hospice means giving up, it's only individuals with a diagnosis of cancer, hospice is a specific place, it hastens death, or it's a 6-month program. And then also to ensure that moving forward, community members can approach this topic with less distress. And more specifically within the project, some of the things that I touched on was the emotional experience involved in end-of-life care, like fear and discomfort surrounding death. And it might not be our own discomfort speaking about it, but maybe even the discomfort of others we're speaking to about our own end-of-life care planning. And that why it's important to have these discussions, as the emotional experience and end-of-life care can look different for everyone based on religion, culture, and other intersecting identities. And then also services hospice provides, myths related to hospice, who provides the services, where it can be located, and then costs and coverage for hospice. And the participants received a resource folder. This was a hybrid presentation, so one was given in person with pages for notes, and then one was sent out electronically the next morning after the presentation. And in the folder, it had a little just cheat sheet chart of what hospice is, what each person on the hospice team does, some questions to ask your doctor about in starting discussions about hospice and general end-of-life care planning, as well as things to be mindful of when looking for a hospice service, as in like their accreditation, licensure, what's their, like, do they have emergency services, or what those are. And then the reason I did a hospice presentation was because of a conversation I had with a participant at the Center for Modern Aging. So I got a call transferred to me from someone who had attended a talk from a specific hospice organization. And then not too long after, her husband went on hospice, and she told me about her experience with the service and how it wasn't what she expected. And then she was like, I don't know if you have you guys do hospice presentations, but that could be beneficial for some other people to know what to expect, what not to expect, and kind of what your role as a care partner or family member is versus the role of the hospice team. And one of CMAP's vision is to be an indispensable community asset for older adults and their families as they navigate the journey of aging. So I felt, especially this coming from a community member who had this experience and also is part of the population that CMAP serves, it fit in with the goal of CMAP. And also, as mentioned, there's a lot of emotional experiences related to end of life care. It looks different for everyone, and there's a lot of myths and assumptions surrounding the topic, and all of these things can play a role in why these conversations aren't had. So the implementation process occurred where I would discuss with my supervisors and other co-workers at Center for Modern Aging about the fellowship, some ideas I had, and then specifically about this presentation. And then when it was agreed that this would be a good presentation to do, I started planning for the newsletter and the program itself through our program planning board, and then created flyers and worked with another employee at the Center for Modern Aging to post the description and some additional social media posts, and getting in contact with Town Topics to put advertising for it there. And then I researched hospice to put together the presentation and selected certain information based off of the presentation and the resources I used to include into the folder. So there, on the presentation, there were 5 people in person and 30 people via Zoom, which I was kind of happy when there was a smaller amount in person, less nerves. But the participants in person and over Zoom seemed really engaged. I had some questions spread out in the presentation looking for participant engagement, and people were very they were happy to participate and respond and engage in conversation throughout the presentation. And they asked questions, they shared their personal stories. Some of those questions and personal stories were shared with me before the presentation, during, and after. And so it was really nice to see that before, during, and after they stayed engaged and excited about the presentation. So takeaways from some of the participants: after the program, there was a evaluation sent out to those who participated. And I just have some of information about what their feedback. 2 separate individuals said things along the lines that they would like more programs like this to be done, because it's something that needs to be thought, like you need to think about and make decisions about. And one of the individuals even suggested doing a multi-day, once a week, in conjunction with other end-of-life topics, like advanced directives, which I touched only a little bit on because I wanted to do mostly hospice. And when I saw this, I was like, oh, where was she when I was doing the planning? I was like, oh, I would collaborate. But I think it's a good opportunity to do more about conversations that people feel are important, but might be a little nervous or find discomfort in discussing. People also said they liked hearing the personal experiences of the other participants, which I thought that was I liked seeing that in the reflections and everything. And then other people like the resource folders, and then some suggestions about ways to change or enhance the presentation would be, some people wanted more specific details regarding to like services or how things are done in hospice, like hospital hospice settings or at home settings. And so if there is a multi-day one, maybe that could also be it give the opportunity for more details. Someone suggested having participants send questions ahead of time, which I think I didn't think of that, I thought that was a great idea. And then someone mentioned on how to enter hospice and everything. So I thought these were good things that I didn't think of and can help influence the way I think about putting on other programs or presentations and what to include. So some of the challenges, which the first one is, I guess it's a good challenge to have. The Center for Modern Aging has a lot of programs and groups to offer already. So kind of coming up with a program to do was difficult or challenging, or it was just, it took some time. but for all good reasons. And also there was a last minute change of plans for the program. I had originally hoped to work in collaboration with a hospice professional to have maybe me talk about the emotional experiences in the beginning, and then they go into more of the specific hospice details, or I give a light overview of the emotional experience and hospice, and then they are there to have more detailed specific questions. But they were traveling and it didn't work out, but in the end it was still good. It was still great, and I appreciate the um their want to be included in the presentation. And then what I learned is that topics that might be seen as taboo or not, that aren't discussed because of discomfort that comes along with them, are sometimes maybe the ones people want to talk about the most. I was kind of pleasantly surprised at the amount of people that showed up to the presentation, because I wasn't sure if, people wanted to or were ready to talk about hospice. Uh, but yeah, and then also I learned that providing psychoeducation can help address stigma and misconceptions and discomfort in the unknowns about certain services, diagnoses, or whatever it may be. Also, I learned how to respond to the needs of the community, as although I wasn't sure how many people this was a need for, the one individual who, although she had her experience already, she also knew or had ideas of what the community might need and want. And then also providing a space for these difficult conversations can empower individuals to have those conversations outside of the organization, or outside of the therapy room, or outside of the doctor's office. And that someone had said from the presentation that they were like, oh, this got me thinking about what I'm going to go talk to my doctor about at my next visit, and like what I'm going to work on with my partner and my kids. And then also the importance of considering acknowledging how intersecting identities can impact views, beliefs, experiences, and perceptions of experiences related to anything really that we experience in life, and the importance of how that's important to providing care that is based off of the individual and their intersecting identities. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sarah. It's just wonderful. I'm so happy with the turnout for the program, and I'm just sitting here thinking about how all of the fellows have embarked on work, as Sarah was saying, that is incredibly difficult to speak about in general. And here our students are doing it and leading it on behalf of practicum agencies and settings that they've worked in. And I can say confidently that professionals, with many, many years in practice might still find these topics and conversations difficult to consider. And so I'm just immensely impressed with how our students are leading these efforts on behalf of the fellowship and the certificate in the school. I just can't say enough about this wonderful work that you're all doing. Thank you so much. Nicole, we are ready for you. Our next fellow. Thank you so much. Wonderful work, everybody.
Okay, cool.
We see it. It looks gorgeous. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, great. Hi everyone, I'm Nicole. For my work as a Taub Fellow, I decided to base my project around a psychoeducational support group for family members who have been dementia caregivers in their lifetime. So yeah, here we go. So yeah, this is just a brief overview of my agenda. I'm just going to provide a brief background on my field placement, the population I was working with for the past 7.5 months, the needs I saw arise, the type of goals I wanted for this project, along with the takeaways I had from the response from the attendees, any challenges, and maybe future plans for the program in the eventual future, which would be really cool. So yeah, my field placement was Parker at Monroe. Parker Life Health Group is a organization dedicated to providing aging services and meeting needs to communities in Middlesex for individuals who have changes in their ability status. And I had the absolute privilege of working at the Monroe location. They're kind of all populated throughout Middlesex. Um, and this particular location was a long-term memory care unit that served people with dementia and Alzheimer's, additional to individuals who were impacted by unique physical disabilities. This particular facility has about 102 residents. It's completely private pay, and it prides itself in being an Eden alternative home. The Eden Alternative is just another organization or company that kind of partners with other nursing facilities and helps facilitate training programs to ensure that adults are being given person-centered care, which is super important because it kind of utilizes this very social work perspective of supporting integrity, self-determinancy, understanding that the client is more than just the individual, but their navigation through different systems and their experiences really, affect the way that they're landing in the seat that the clinician, that the social worker, that the whoever clinical person is seeing that individual in that context. So it laid a really great foundation for my work with the Taub. Implementing, uh, that framework was really important, especially considering caregivers and the role that they play, especially navigating this transitional time where, the people who are coming to Parker may have never had experiences with nursing facilities and were really predominantly just taking on all those caregiving responsibilities on their own. So working with this framework and this structure in mind really laid the groundwork for my goals and hopes with the psychoeducational group. So yeah. So this is just an overview of the specific goals and purposes that I kind of helped frame my psychoeducational group. I found I really wanted to be led with and addressing caregiver stress, especially for those who were new incoming families who are now working in a broader context with a larger care team. Um, I wanted to emphasize how important it was that families feel supported, informed, especially on dementia, the disease, the how progressive and intricate it is. Like their introduction to that conversation is varied, and I wanted to address that with the psychoeducational group and give them more of a foundation and a point of reference for them to kind of just touch base with and get as much information as possible and feel like they're being heard with whatever questions maybe they never had the opportunity to ask in the past, and just really provide recognition for the role because caregiving is such hard and unseen work, especially with dementia care. And I really wanted to highlight the collaboration that can be built upon at a place like Parker because it is such a person-centered. It really is a person-centered facility where the people there really want to ensure that people are being taken care of, and that everyone feels involved and a team player of sorts, in that regard. So just some of the leading goals is to identify biological changes associated with dementia, the physical changes that come with the disease, and the implications it will have on behavior. Um, and the other component, of course, was also supporting caregivers with the transition, understanding the role dynamics, emphasizing that they are still a caregiver in their own capacity. It's just there's more assistance, there's more help at a place like Parker. So clarifying the roles was really important with this program and just reviewing self-care options, identifying what caregiver burnout was like that was really important, introducing them to that jargon, that language, so that they feel more comfortable with it, and so that they can recognize those symptoms within themselves, was a big hit for the seminar as well. So yeah, um, This is just a general overview of the project, the details of it. Officially titled Lunch and Learn Supporting a Loved One Living with Dementia. The seminar was held in the afternoon on a Saturday in March. And we also provided lunch just to, hopefully incentivize people to come in. Lunchtime, we found out, was hit or miss just because a lot of families would come in, sit with their loved ones, want to support them, especially on weekends. So we felt that providing lunch was a good incentive for them to pop in and, hang out with us for a little bit. Um, Below is just the specific areas of content that we hit. So again, the biological changes, understanding those changes. We also provided tips for positive interactions in lieu of those changes, just because, again, with the intricacies of this disease and the broad spectrum of symptoms that occur, no one experience is the same. So we really wanted to encourage comfortability with the disease and engaging with their loved one because like even though the caregiving dynamic and context may have changed, that's still their person and they can still meaningfully engage with their loved one in spite of these changes. So we wanted to give them as many tools as possible to encourage those interactions. And then again, the last two bullet notes are just those self-care like components to it as well. Identifying caregiving burnout and resources as well for individuals who may want to explore more information on the physical changes of dementia, along with intervention mechanisms and tools to mediate any activating emotions that may have come up either during the presentation or during interactions with their loved ones as they sit with them and still enjoy their time in this new, again, caregiving context. So overall, the participants gave very positive feedback, which was great. They really appreciated the space to have questions. It was very flexible. I didn't have um, it structured where I presented all the information and they ask all the questions. They kind of just popcorn them throughout, which was really great. And it actually surprised me how many questions I got about the biological changes, which in retrospect probably shouldn't have been as surprising. Um, given my knowledge of the fact that everyone's interaction engagement with this information is different. But nonetheless, it was still really great to flex all of my research muscles that I put into this about dementia and the disease itself. So that was really great. Overall, we had about 15 people attend from 4 different families. It was a mix of new admits and older families that have just has been a part of the Parker family for a while. Um, the recruitment was based on just letters and word of mouth, which was a really convenient way of passing along the message. And definitely the new admissions were specifically targeted as they were getting introduced to, what it meant to having that new dynamic with a nursing facility and also just getting them more affiliated with Parker staff, like our faces and stuff. So yeah, it was really great. It was a really great experience and everyone gave such wonderful feedback. Yeah, nonetheless, we still ran into a couple of challenges. Um, we definitely had a couple delays in the event just because of the nature of, flu season. This took place in the beginning, like, a lot of the planning went in the beginning of the semester, so January, that was prime time for COVID and flu, so it impacted logistical components like advertisement, planning for the amount of people that were coming, the duration of the event. Initially, when I approached my supervisors, I had anticipated maybe doing a couple of different sessions just to get a better gauge of the outcome, the type of feedback, and then, trying to modify it. Um, Nonetheless, it was still a huge success, in my opinion. I adored speaking with the families, working closely with the families, working closely with my supervisors. So yeah, that even though with those delays, it it still was a great experience. And as for the challenges that I faced or experienced directly administering and facilitating these discussions, were just the time constraints, honestly. Again, I wanted it to make it as flexible as possible, give them the opportunity to feel like, their discussions were heard, their questions were being answered. So we kind of ran tight on time. Again, it was an hour and a half. It started, I believe, at 12 and was anticipated to end at 1:30. And just the nature of the questions, people had to leave halfway through. Other individuals, like they kind of wanted to go in more depth about medication and other content outside of the realm of social work, which of course is going to be anticipated and expected and welcomed. Of course, it wasn't like I didn't want to make them feel like their concerns or questions were, invalid or in any regard, but just given the time frame, it did take away from how well we were able to expound on like caregiver stress, and I really had to blow through tips and tricks of like mindfulness and trying to mitigate those feelings that come up as individuals are engaging with their loved one and the disease as a whole. But nonetheless, I felt like it was definitely a success. So with these little learning bumps in mind. Looking forward, expanding the event would be really great, just again to account for that those people, the individuals who really want to go in depth on these clinical questions. Maybe even adding more sessions to the event, that would be really cool, just so that it could be kind of like a part of a series would be really interesting. And so that again, it builds a greater community for the families and caregivers to not only seek support from the clinical staff at Parker, but for among the individuals around them who are experiencing very similar um, situations with their loved ones, finding community with other families that have, are also going through this experience, I thought would be really great. In lieu of all of the clinical questions specifically about medication, I thought that incorporating more clinical staff would be a great opportunity for the families to really go in depth and really get specific answers to their questions. So maybe incorporating a Q&A opportunity, where we kind of just like drag in a nurse or a doctor maybe at the end, or if they could sit through even our session, that'd be awesome, so that they can just answer these questions as they come up to maintain, again, that fluid, flexible structure that I had to the seminar as a whole. And then lastly, I thought that maybe filming the events or holding the event synchronously via Zoom or Google Meet so that it can read a broader population would also address the accessibility of the event as well. So yeah. And then these are just the final takeaways that I got from working with this population and holding this project in general. Um, families coming to nursing homes to Parker, they all have varied familiarity with the disease, and with nursing facilities as a whole. The more information that we can provide is not only empowering to the individual, but to the family system as a whole, right? Because it gives them the feeling of confidence and safety of knowing, like, okay, like I can navigate these systems. I have points of reference. I also now have tools that I can use to mitigate the feelings I'm dealing with while engaging with my loved one as they experience this disease, this progressive disease. Um, and still have the comfort of knowing that like that's still their person, that's still their loved one, just engaging may look a little bit different now. So again, the more information we can provide really helps maintain those expectations for interactions with their loved ones, along with communication to the facility at large as well. So with this in mind, having a person-centered facility, you must necessitate also incorporating the families, the caregivers, because again, they are an extension of that support group for the individual. So, encouraging that cohesion, that collaboration is extremely important, especially for family members who are navigating these new systems, these new role transitions. It's incredibly important, and also important for clinicians as well, and having these conversations with these individuals. And yeah. So that's it. That's the end of my presentation. I'm so sorry if I went, I felt like I just took a breath and but thank you so much for listening. It was a wonderful experience. Thank you so much to the Taub Foundation and the Hub for Aging Collaboration and just spotlighting these really important deeds. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Nicole. So appreciate your work and your pivoting and flexibility and also just naming so much of what individuals experience. I'm so impressed again by all of the fellows and their work. So thank you so much. And we'll have questions at the end. So we're just going to invite our final presenter, our last Tab Fellow to present, Kellen. Thank you so much. Yay, Eli. Yay. Thank you all.
Okay.
It's coming up. There it is.
Slides up?
Beautiful. Yep, beautiful. Thank you.
Okay. So, hello, I'm Kellen Peck, and I have just completed my year-long clinical internship at Jewish Family and Children's Service of Greater Mercer County under the insightful and very patient supervision of Shirley Bellardo. My TAO project is Rebuilding Balance, a support group for women after spousal loss based in the dual process model. And it was created to, bolster the agency's therapeutic offerings for older adults. And I'm very grateful to both JFCS and the TAO Foundation and Rutgers School of Social Work for supporting me in the creation of this program. Okay, so just a quick overview of how I'm going to go forward here. I'm going to talk about determining the area of need, about reviewing the evidence-based interventions available to meet that need, about designing the group, deploying the group, and evaluating the group at the end. Okay, so one of my first responsibilities at JFCS was doing intake interviews with clients who had reached out to us for counseling services. And this was actually a really great and instructive way to get a handle on what sorts of people, challenges the people in our area were facing, and what sort of services they were looking to JFCS to provide. So during the fall, the agency received numerous calls asking if we offered bereavement groups, which JFCS had offered in the past but was not on the current schedule. And two details about these calls stood out. Every person who called looking for such a group was an older woman. And secondly, and importantly, all of the callers described not only grappling with sadness and loss, but also being absolutely overwhelmed by the paperwork, the tasks, and the adjustment to their new social role without their spouse. So that was the basis for the intervention that I was going to undertake with the Taub. So with the help of Oh, sorry. So these reports sounded very similar to experiences that I had had with Johanna Peters in the Next Chapter Bereavement Group during my placement last year at the Center for Modern Aging in Princeton, and also to a model that Professor Mary Beth Ali taught last spring. This is Strova and Schutt's dual process model of coping with bereavement. And so I have a little diagram up here of this model. And this model posits that grief is not a linear process. We're not working through stages here, but that people who are experiencing grief have, they're oscillating between two clouds of tasks. There are kind of these loss-oriented tasks where it's the emotional work of coping with the loss of a loved one. And there's also restoration oriented tasks, which are the kind of placing yourself now in a new position and adjusting to the changes in your life, even the very mundane paperworky kind. So this model not only encompasses the range of concerns that I was hearing on the intake line, but it felt like something I could do because it's very aligned with the mission of social work, right? We're looking to work with people in their environment, and this was a really good model to address both of those pieces. So with the help of Julia Maxwell, the amazing social work librarian, I was able to find some examples of really successful bereavement support groups that were based in this model. There was one conducted by Lund, Caserta, DeVries, and Bright in Utah in 2004, and they had a 12-week model. And then there was also a really interesting bereavement group based in the dual process model that Dr. Amy Chow undertook in Hong Kong. And she actually ran a randomized control trial of an 8-week group that was not only based in the dual process model, but was also tailored to the specific experiences of the people who lived in Hong Kong, like in her agency area. And in both cases, this was found to be a very successful and meaningful intervention for the people who took place. So the JFCS group design was we invited women over age 65 who had lost a spouse within the last 15 months. We planned for 6 90-minute sessions. The group was closed to promote privacy and cohesion, and there's no charge to participate. To evaluate the group's success, we would administer a brief survey after session 3, make sure we're on the right path, and to solicit more comprehensive qualitative response after the last session. So one thing I want to pause for a minute here and talk about is the guiding ideal, the ethos that I wanted to bring to this group. Last semester, I came across a paper that was written for professionals in palliative medicine, and that's a specialization that focuses on relieving symptoms and improving quality of life. And the authors of this paper examined patients' experiences of receiving compassionate care. And they found that what patients strongly preferred was care that was altruistic, that it didn't feel like it was just a practitioner checking a box, but was actually coming from a place of compassion, that was action oriented, in that, real things were happening, that we weren't talking about things so much as we were actually affecting action. That the care was aimed at relieving their particular suffering. So a real dialogue between the clinician and the participant, that they felt like their needs were being heard and addressed. And also small acts of kindness that go above and beyond what is expected. In the paper, they talked about things like walking people to a car with an umbrella, or offering a cup of tea, but just these little small things that help people feel that their pain is being seen and addressed by an actual human, a compassionate human on the other side. So I wanted to take these ideas and put them into the group. So keeping with that philosophy of altruism, action orientation, relief of suffering, and inclusion of small acts of kindness, this is the general meeting template that I set up. So there would be a pleasant room, soft lighting, comfortable chairs. I commandeered the conference room over at JF, so everyone was very patient with that. Very careful preparation, clipboards, agendas, session materials, handouts, the good pens that don't skip, everything, very carefully orchestrated. Thank you so much to the Taub Foundation, because of the funding, we were able to have really lovely coffee, tea, and refreshments there. We worked through every French bakery in Princeton, had a moment there on our table. We began each session with a short meditation. We allowed very unhurried time to discuss topics that the participants brought to the group. And only then, after these needs had been met, did I come in with a bit of psychoeducation and resource sharing. And then we spent time each week talking about some loss-oriented topics and doing some exercises around them. And then also spent some time doing some restoration-oriented tasks and doing some exercises there. So I won't go through each individually, but here's a brief overview of the weekly topics. The topic choice was informed by the Chow and Lund interventions I spoke about earlier, and also tuned a bit to our place in the calendar and the folks who would come. So in the first week, we talked about the dual process model, and we also did some computer skills assessment and resources, because that really is a foundation for the people in that age group to be able to access more resources on their own. So I wanted to lay that base. Week 2 was scheduled for discussion of secondary loss and preparation for tax season. Again, referring people to resources in the both online and in the community. In the third week, we talked about the effect of widowhood on self-esteem, and we did some exercises to bolster both of those areas. In the fourth week, which was right up on Valentine's Day, we talked about getting through holidays, anniversaries, other difficult days of this type. And we also built on the task, the self-esteem task from the week before, with like more strategies for taking on these difficult tasks that we may not have encountered in the past. On week 5, we had a session that was actually lovely. It was a loss-oriented picture and story day where by this time everyone in the group knew, or had heard so much about the lost spouses, and this was really a celebration of them and a chance for people to talk about really meaningful experiences that they had had, and we all got to meet the the spouses in that session. And then we concluded in week 6 with a restoration focus session on self-care, appointment making, and setting a future event that could provide some positive anticipation, like a sense of moving forward. So, so now we have this like beautiful design. It was time to get some participants. So we recruited from in-agency referrals and social media blasts on the agency Instagram account. And this flyer was designed by Joyce Weinstein in the JFCS public relations team. She did a beautiful job. And we expected that we would, or I had expected that we would get about 7 or 8 participants. So as it happened, we had 3 participants register, and I was a bit concerned by this number, even though I knew that an in-person activity for older adults in January in New Jersey might have been overly ambitious. And I considered making some changes to the group design to include more people, such as offering a Zoom or a hybrid option or expanding the inclusion criteria. But after some conversations with Dr. Snedeker and Shirley Bellardo and doing some more reading about group composition and the possibilities of a microgroup, we decided to roll the dice on the 3 participants. So the participants were spread across a 14-year age span. The oldest participant was 82 and the youngest 68. They had many commonalities, all identified as Jewish, all had great relationships with their adult children, all had lost their long-term husbands to chronic illness after a multi-month period of caretaking. So how did it wind up? Well, first we had full participation, no dropouts, no missed sessions. Even on the snow day, the office was closed in the morning once for snow, and everyone shoveled out and made it into the office for 12:30. We received a lot of positive feedback, both at the midpoint and at the final, and I'll share some of the comments we received. So, just a generally very positive experience for the women in the group, and I'm especially interested in a couple of these comments. One was the fact that it was a small group and only widows made it feel completely safe. And this had been one of my biggest concerns, was the slender enrollment. But this coziness, the small number, the common experiences made it a really easy situation, or like an easier situation for people to be able to like open up. And there was just a very excellent rapport right out of the gate with this group. Another really interesting comment is this one over here, where a participant said that the group made her feel useful. And this sharing of knowledge among group members was a really important feature of our time together. And like, as I've been hearing the other presentations this morning, from Eli's presentation and from Nicole's presentation, this ability of people to speak to one another and just share their stories, that's a very valuable moment to create. So so that was really great. And this woman in particular, she had figured out a puzzle that was really vexing other people in the group, in that she had figured out how to transfer vehicle title, and what the implications were of like transferring it out of like joint ownership to with her husband to single ownership to her, and should she put her children on it. So we had a really actually lovely conversation about the transference of vehicle titles. And So here are my takeaways. What can we take away? The small group size was a feature. It wasn't a bug. It allowed people to form this strong rapport quickly, and that was important because we only had 6 weeks together. One participant had also shared that she had been in a group for widows with 15 members, and she stopped going because it was just too much sadness. So there's a space for bereavement microgroups, you know. The second was it was really important, and again, as Nicole found, it's very important to stay flexible on the restoration tasks that I had planned, and to leave space and kind of meet the clients where they were with their actual concerns. I had designed um, all of these, you know, restoration activities that I felt would be useful ahead of time, and or they had been really useful in the London Chow interventions, but I needed to shift when our participants they just weren't interested in cooking for one. That was not an area of interest for them, and but they did really want to understand about where they should keep their husband's name on certain things like their property deed, just for safety reasons, and like what the implications of that would be. And lastly, for group timing, if I were to run this group again, just there are several tasks that you want to complete in, like tax related tasks that you would like to complete in the calendar year of your spouse's passing. And I feel like I missed that opportunity by running this group in January instead of December. You know, like when I handed out all of this information and set them up with the hotlines, uh, you know, there was a participant who said, "Well, I hope I did it right," you know, a couple of weeks ago, because you know this would have been very useful to know that. So those are my takeaways, and that's it. So thank you again to Dr. Snedeker for helping me shape this project, and Shirley and everyone at JFCS for their complete support and patience, and for the Taub Foundation for making this sort of project possible. Julia Maxwell for helping me sift through the literature, my fellow fellows for your comradeship, and my family for their love and support and soundboarding throughout this process. Thank you very much.
Just amazing. Thank you so much, Kellen. What an amazing, amazing job. Thank you so, so much. Wonderful work to this year's fellows. I'm just dazzled, truly dazzled. Um, let's go ahead and invite for any sort of comments or feedback to each other, as well as, you know, from the rest of the wonderful attendees this morning. Any questions or yes, Dr. Greenfield.
Hi, everybody. This is such a treat to hear about this incredible work. I kind of hear about your projects at the beginning, and then I get to hear about them now at the end. And it's just amazing all that you're able to accomplish in a relatively short period of time. So congratulations. And, you know, when we think about the think logic model evaluation, right? Like when we think about the outputs and outcomes and impact of your work, of course, we're really keen on these projects addressing real human needs, or real, you know, in real time, being responsive to problem solving and promoting health and well-being. But I also wanted to ask about this issue of like capacity development. So both in terms of like how the experience of doing these projects have you reflect on how it's enhanced your capacity as a social work leader in aging, like what kind of insights on key things you've gleaned from it that tool you up in a way that you wouldn't have maybe had otherwise, or amplified other strengths that you would have gotten as a outside of the fellowship. And then also, and or if you choose, how it's enhanced the organizational capacity of your practicum placements. So even when your internship has ended, what do you feel like you're leaving behind for others that are going to carry on that they wouldn't have had otherwise without the capacity development from your projects?
That's a great question. I think the first thing that comes to mind for me is that aspect of this project being enduring was really important to me, and I was glad that that was kind of stipulated from even just looking at what even is the Taub Fellowship before even applying. That was really important that it produces some kind of enduring project. And I had higher hopes than what I achieved for an enduring thing at the VA. I had hoped to develop this system for uh, or a track for people to get respite care attached to going to a group, uh, and yeah, and ideally like everybody who's diagnosed with dementia at the VA, like their caregiver gets a message, and we're using the chart to automate all this stuff. Um, what I ended up with was an informal collaboration with the Alzheimer's Association, and just more of a relationship between the PACT social workers, which is the primary care social workers, and the caregiver support team, which is still something, and and it works. I'm glad that I chose to, instead of running the like designing a group from scratch myself, I'm glad that I chose to work with the Alzheimer's Association, because they've been looking for venues and excuses to do groups, so, so it works for them too. um yeah
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, as part of the Hub for Aging collaboration, we love hearing that the outcome or yield of your project was new interconnections and connections externally between your organization and other key stakeholders. So that is definitely a valued outcome from your work.
Mhm.
So
Just one other piece, and I don't know if this really hits any of your questions, but something I learned was to, depending on the thing, just ask for forgiveness rather than permission. Working in this giant organization, I kept wanting to ask, like, so what can I do? Like what? Yeah. Um, and I just needed to drive this group, and then build interest around it. And if somebody wants to say no, uh, like they can later down the line, but people are generally supportive. It's the VA is all about supporting veterans. So the question on everybody's mind is, does it support veterans? Yes. And their caregivers? Yes. Okay. So I learned to just trust that and kind of
words of
make decisions a little more boldly.
words of a true change maker. I love it.
Yeah. And really, really important, to consistently hold that as you embark in the professional world, to remember the importance of social work. Without social work, there wouldn't be a lot of other things in the world. And to also, honor that we are students, perhaps your student status now is all the more meaningful. And how you're setting, sort of the foundation for your own professional careers. We hear constantly how on any sort of team, social work is sort of regarded in one way or the other. Please refute that. Like, let's just look, ignore it, and walk in as boldly as Eli has, and all of you have in your work. Any other fellows have any response to Dr. Greenfield's question, I wonder? Go ahead. Just had to interject there. Thanks so much, Eli.
I was just going to talk about the importance of education and how empowering just giving language and information is. I never saw myself as someone who could present and lead these groups, but it was so gratifying to be able to hold those conversations and give space even for like the anger and resentment that sometimes comes up in these spaces, because like these systems aren't very easy to navigate, and the lack of community and lack of support is really alarming. And being able to be a part of something, and I intimately got to know a lot of these families just like bustling around the facility. So seeing the familiar faces and recognizing, like, man, like you've been dealing with this for a really long time, a lot of this confusion, like that really sucks, and I'm sorry. So it was really great just to be able to give back to that. Was yeah, I also just the location I was at was a smaller group of people. It wasn't like a huge nursing home. I mean, I remember when I first started there, and I thought like, oh man, like over 100 people, that's crazy. And then getting to know like understand how other nursing homes actually are and stuff was really intense. But I feel very thankful and privileged to be in such a community for sure, and be able to empower individuals with such education. So yeah.
Nicole, thank you so much. I feel like true words of a true social worker and all of those reflections. Appreciate it.
I see Julia has her hand up. I don't know if any of the other fellows wanted to finish responding to Dr. Greenfield's question, or for sort of whatever works. Oh, Kellen.
Yeah, I feel like I'm so accustomed to raising my hand in
I
these
know.
classrooms.
Totally.
But no, I wanted to speak to the idea that I love that this whole profession, and I really value this opportunity for a chance to listen and respond, you know, to really hear what is coming out of the community, and say how, you know, what are the tools that I have learned, I have, you know, collected that I can use now to respond to this. And that I feel like that's been like a feature of everything I've done at the School of Social Work, and you know, both of my placements, and I really value the Taub for supporting that, and for actually putting that, you know, in the projects. It's just like you're going and you're going to find, you know, like, analyze the situation you're in, and use what you know to you know, make things better there. And that's what I'm bringing forward, is like this idea of dialogue with your community.
Helen, that's amazing. I really appreciate that reflection too, both in terms of being responsive and kind of on the ground experiences of what a community is showing signals of valuing and how they want to spend their time and support each other and receive support. But also, to your credit, also super impressed you're able to marry that with the formal research evidence on what are effective programs, and not just kind of shooting from the hip entirely, but this kind of nice balance between real-time responsiveness, even having a theory to describe of how you are responsive, like in terms of those guiding principles of, you know, like for example, the small acts of kindness and being action oriented, like that kind of praxis, really like this integration of theory, knowledge, and doing all at the same time, I think is super powerful for excellence in social work. So congratulations to you too.
I'll say something as well, even though my fellow fellows said it all really, really well. But similar to what everyone said, and then to go off of Kellen's point also, um, really just like engaging with the community, and then also like, you know, uh, kind of what a lot of people the a lot of the three other fellows said about how, you know, being flexible with while making the program, but then also in the midst of the program, whether or not it was multiple groups, and kind of just like, again, what Kellen said, responding to the needs um, while making it, and then also in it, you know, working with the community in creating the program, and then whilst the program is going on, whether it be uh, alter al change altering the topic that is discussed, or just giving a little more time for the personal reflections during, and personal experience and questions during the group or presentation. And also just the uh, I am thankful to this fellowship and Taub organization to have an additional like practical experience within the education, because on top of practicum, because I I don't want to speak for other people, but I find it's very useful to have that practical experience in a additional way, aside from the practicum itself. And also it was interesting because there's I guess a unique sort of collaboration with the fellows that I felt, where we weren't working together on on a project together, but kind of there are some overlaps, a four circle Venn diagram, I guess you can say, between all of our projects. And it was just nice feeling supported by people who are doing part of the fellowship, but doing different things, and kind of hearing about their experiences and learning from them.
Sarah, that's amazing. And so much I could say in reflection of that, but I'll just end on the last note with this idea that the four of you, and thanks to Lauren as well for her leadership, as well as formulating kind of what we call a community of practice, which is like like a peer network where you show up for each other for around a shared passion and for mutual learning, like learning from each other and learning with each other. And we've learned through so much on innovating on aging in communities, that communities of practice are essential for change making and keeping energy going and keep continuing to push forward and make change together and in parallel. So just really want to appreciate your reflection on that part of the program too. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was the most fun with our cohort meetings and just touching base and checking in and sharing projects and all of that through the process is probably one of the most fun parts of the year for me as well. I think Julia, did you have a question? Yeah.
We kind of, the fellows have covered kind of what I was going to ask about, but I also was curious about whether the opportunities led to other opportunities for any of you. I'm just curious about whether you're encouraged to like follow up with something else with that same organization, or if it inspired in you another idea that you wanted to carry forward. It's kind of piggybacking on Emily's question. Thank you for that question, Emily, because I just learned so much about all of the work that all of you, the benefits really of being part of this. So, but if you have anything you'd like to share about what it might be leading to for you next, I would love to hear that.
That's a great question. So Lauren and I have talked a bit about this, but my plan is to take a long arc to come back to aging in terms of as a family therapist is the idea. I've come to appreciate just how much the strengths of a family and the relationships in there, how much those matter when it comes to when somebody is diagnosed with dementia or some other chronic illness or an acute a fall, whatever it may be. Um, and I I enjoyed, so I got trained as a volunteer for the Alzheimer's Association and did a couple of their train the trainer sessions, and I'm getting emails to do more of those. Um, and I am moving soon, so I won't be able to be involved with Raven at the Salt Lake City chapter or the Utah chapter, but I'm inspired to stay involved with the Alzheimer's Association and to combine out of left field interest of mine improv, and I keep hearing that people do improv at nursing homes or with groups of people with dementia and things like that. So I'm excited to do some things on the side there as I'm building up my chops in couples and family therapy and eventually coming back to aging in that way.
I was just going to talk a little bit about how when I first started, I was strictly clinical, and I was like, you know what? I really want to meet with individuals, especially with this population. Victoria knows when I interviewed, I was like, I'm a clinical student. I have this experience in therapeutic services, and I think just understanding how important like larger programs, intervention methods are, especially with this population, I've found a profound just gratitude of the meso field, and definitely am in more investment in the field previously than what I had going in, because I was like, I knew that this was definitely the population I wanted to work clinically with, but understanding like how much can be done outside of just like therapy and like clinical work, Not to say that that isn't necessary, but just a broader application, I think, is, yeah. And I've definitely am very grateful for the experience.
I'll just pop in and say that I am just a huge believer in groups. I have been a believer in groups, for my entire social work school experience, and that's what I want to do. I want to be able to like create more opportunities like this, where people can get together and share, like these stories and these challenges that they're going through, and go through it together. I mean, we're social, creatures, and to create like these spaces, that's really where I want to go forward, probably in a little bit more clinical than Nicole, but still in that space.
Yeah, I think it kind of uh I really enjoy learning about this. Was also doing the hospice presentation. I was like, okay, I get to learn a lot more too. And so kind of like what everyone said about doing group work, small group, large group, which whatever it may be, but kind of just like in preparing those programs, I learned while doing that, and then also learning from the people in it, their experiences, and kind of gave me more of an interest, and also uh, made me feel or helped me realize my capability of being able to uh, provide education even when I on something, even if I didn't have knowledge about it before. That doesn't mean I can't still do that with other people and alongside them. And uh yeah, just gave me a broader interest of psychoeducation groups and learning alongside people I'm working with.
I really appreciate hearing all of that. Thank you for sharing it with me. And I especially appreciate like what Kellen was saying, that you've carried with you this social work value and principle of listening and opening up space for people to talk. And I'm sure that you are the kinds of social workers that give that space. And it's so important to be sort of person-centered, even in group work. I have seen that in my own family experience, which I mentioned before. And some group activities, many people respond to them, but maybe one or two people don't, and they need a different kind of an input or stimulation. The stimulation might be too much. So just being aware of that and being able to address it and participate with your full selves. Very much appreciate hearing that.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. Just want to invite for any more final questions for our fellows as they are gearing up to cross that stage. I'm so excited. I cannot wait. Graduation is the best, the actual best, for obvious reasons, but and might be where I am in my life course, but I'm just, moved to tears about just the wonderful work that you're all doing. As a social worker myself, who has worked with older people doing all the things that you've done, it is my dream to inspire and educate you all to continue doing that. And it's just, it's just a proud moment for me to hear that and to be a part of that and to witness that. And I just am so glad that this was meaningful and that you're walking away with tremendous skill and experience in this work. So sincere congratulations on that. Very, very proud. Thank you, Assistant Dean Hunter, who's also joining us today. We're so glad you could make it. And thank you for that. Any final questions or thoughts in our space? We're at our time. Alrighty. Well, thank you. Thank you all for joining. Thank you for being here. Thanks to the fellows for their tremendous work on behalf of the fellowship, the certificate, and the school, and the profession, really. We really are so impressed and proud of the work that you have done and will continue to do. And I look forward to reaching out to all of you for your round of fellows and interns in just a couple of years. So expect the call. And thank you all so much again for being here. Really, truly, congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you too, Lauren.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you all for all your support.
course, Emily, this is really wonderful. Janice is here as part of
Yes.
the certificate program. We're all so invested and so proud. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you.
And
Thank
of
you
course,
all.
the Taub. Thank you so much. This is so important.
A pleasure. Thank you.
Everyone, take good care. Get outside. It helps with everything. And we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
All
you,
right.
everyone. Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Good job, everybody. Enjoy the day. Thank you.